What's going on? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. I recently did a video about a band, we won't mention them right now, being universally hated around the world. The band Winger came up in the comment section by a viewer. The comment this viewer posted pretty much stated that Winger was also a band that was hated quite a bit, so I had to dig in a little bit deeper. And as I did, I realized, one, I actually already knew a lot about Winger, more than I even thought I knew. Two, they have gotten a lot of crap over the years. So I find the 80s decade very intriguing, and bear with me on this analogy. I was born in the latter part of the decade, 88 to be exact, and I really feel a strong connection to this decade. Honestly, almost like as if one life ended a previous life and a new life began in the same decade. I promise you, I'm not crazy. I know that sounds weird. Just my way of explaining that, I feel like I was living in that time period as much as it resonates with me. The band Winger was not much different than other bands in that time period in promoting themselves. It's almost comparable to nowadays when these musicians and artists or bands will post their stuff on all these platforms in the hopes that the right person will hear it and that will help them get the big break they're looking for. Now, really, the only difference between the bands at that decade and people now was that their grind was a little different. They were posting flyers wherever their city was, whatever their town was. They would post and promote that way and then play as many shows as possible to get noticed. And their hope was the right person would show up to the show, see them, and give them their big break. Now, Winger showed up on the scene in 1987. They formed in New York City. Now, the thing was, they were jumping on at that time what was a very hot trend, especially in the rock music industry. Now, I really mean this when I say the 80s was a prime decade for being a band like Winger. The style, the sound was in. Now, all you had to do was put yourself out there, and that was giving you the opportunity to have that chance to make it. Now, Kip Winger, the lead singer and the founder of the band Winger, was not a rookie to the music industry. Even though the band formed in 1987, Kip was a composer, and he had a body of work that spanned across a decade in upwards of 12 different rock and roll albums. So Winger's first album, their debut album in 1988, self-titled, and their second album in 1990, In the Heart of the Young, both albums went platinum in the United States. Now, that 1988 album, their self-titled album, had two of their biggest hits, and honestly, two of the biggest hits of the decade. One was their song 17, which was a very controversial song to say the least, and their second song, Headed for a Heartbreak, a classic song. Both of those songs would sound familiar to anybody, even if you didn't know the band. All of Winger's first three albums were released by Atlantic Records, their third album being released in 1993, going by the name Pool. This had a very funny story behind it. So the reason that the band came up with the name Pool for this third studio album basically came up pretty much as a joking manner. And it wasn't no joke because there's a lot of money behind making an album. Now, Kip Winger came up with this name because he wasn't confident in the material on the album whatsoever. So when he knew this thing was going to be released, he felt the music critics were going to tear it apart and use it for skeet shooting, hence the name Pull. You know, getting a late start on the 80s rock scene doesn't mean that you will not have success moving forward. All it means is you just got to keep grinding. Take, for example, Guns N' Roses' debut album, Appetite for Destruction. Huge album, 1987, late in the 80s. Now, does that mean that they were not going to have success? No, because they're still out rocking right now. Matter of fact, they're out touring with most of the original members in the lineup, especially some of the key members like Slash on guitar, Duff on bass, Axl on vocals. But they had their moments that got a little rocky, and there was years the band wasn't together, but people still love them. In Winger's case, it went the opposite direction. And you got to realize, their third album wasn't released till 1993. 1993 was a big year, especially because the grunge movement was in full effect. This was a case of only the strong survive, and there's a long list of bands from the 80s that just faded into oblivion when the grunge movement came through, because it came through strong. But, like I said, if you're relentless in your pursuit, none of that stuff would matter. But if you let it get to you, what happens in life when we let stuff get to us? We usually convince ourselves to give up, tuck our tail between our legs, and walk away. That's never the answer. Even though Winger had their hits, they had their moment of success, their time to shine, there was times, especially around their third album, where it didn't stop them from being the brunt of a lot of people's jokes. In fact, doing my research on the band, This is where I realized, you know what? This is where I remember seeing Winger. And yes, I remember the songs, but this, Beavis and Butthead, everybody remembers Beavis and Butthead. They were huge in the early 90s. And it was a good thing. If you were a band and you were on Beavis and Butthead and they promoted you in a positive light, it helped you. It helped you grow. It helped people want to listen to you because they knew Beavis and Butthead liked you. There was a character on the show named Stuart. He was a nerdy fellow and he always walked around. And you know what kind of shirt he had on? That's right. He had a Winger shirt on. Now you got Beavis and Butthead with their Metallica and AC/DC t-shirt, pretty much promoting dominance. Those bands are dominant and they should be looked at as such. Winger, nerdy kid, wearing the shirt. That's the kind of people that listen to Winger, and that's pretty much what they were promoted as. The nerd band. Now, it doesn't mean that's what I think they are. I'm just saying, it doesn't help. That kind of publicity is never good. And another thing that didn't help was Beavis and Butthead sitting on their couch when they watched their music videos. If they had something good to say about you, it was always good. But in Winger's case, they never had nothing good to say. In fact, the one thing they would always say is, this band sucks. Another thing that was big in a negative light for Winger was the music video by Metallica for Nothing Else Matters. In this music video, they have Lars Ulrich, the drummer for Metallica. He's throwing darts at a dartboard. But you know what he has pinned to that dartboard? That's right, a picture of Kip Winger, and he's just tossing darts at it. And this ended up being a big deal. Eventually later, Lars would come out to apologize, but damage was done. Didn't really matter. That's what Winger was. The band that gets darts thrown at their head. Not literally. It was a poster, but you get the idea. So now let's go over a few reasons why we think Winger got themselves in a situation where they were not only, pretty much picked on, but also not able to succeed like some other bands. First thing we're going to talk about is not being able to follow up on their original success. So knowing what I know now and learning what I'm learning now about, let's use this for example, the YouTube platform, being a content creator on YouTube. As a band originated in 87 and they dropped their first album in 88, they had some big hits on the album. I compare this to if somebody were to put a video out on YouTube or TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, anything, and it went viral, you're going to have your moment where you're having success, people are going to know who you are, but what are you going to follow it up with? That's always the key to success. It doesn't matter. If you can get yourself out there, great. But if you're passionate and you really want to do something and you do taste success, how do you keep moving forward after that? And I think that was the first thing that really bit Winger in the butt, because their sophomore album, in my opinion, I don't want to say it sounded generic, but it was not able to live up to that first album, for one, and two, it just didn't sound much different than what was already going on with a lot of bands at that time. And we know 1990, right around the corner, here comes that grunge movement. And if you didn't make yourself stand out, you were just going to get railroaded by all those bands. So what's the next thing we're going to look at? That's timing. Timing is everything. We mentioned it earlier in the video. They came onto the scene late. So yes, they had their success. The first album, great. Kudos to the band. The second album, In the Heart of the Young, their second sophomore album, 1990. Again, me personally, it wasn't enough to stand out. And that's me being a critic. I'm allowed to be a critic. Just like any of you watching right now are allowed to be my critic. Please feel free, because it's all about how you accept it. Now, they were getting their criticism. They were getting it from pop culture. They were getting it from other bands. They were getting it from music critics. Doesn't matter what comes at you. It's how do you respond? Do you have that shield, that Superman-like flesh? Do you have it? Or does it just go right through you? Now, I'm not saying that Winger let it get to them, but they were late to the scene. A lot of bands were starting to die out. The sound was getting old, and not everybody was evolving with the music. And Winger fell in that category. Now, there may be some Winger fans out there that love their 1990 album. There might even be fans out there that love their 93 album, Pool. But by the time 93 rolled around, if they didn't get the hint and get it together in 1990, then I'm not going to say it was too late in 93, but if you didn't change then and you didn't change anything 3 years later, what the hell were you thinking? Success was not going to happen. Now, it goes for you and I as well. We got to go and roll with the punches, roll with the times. Doesn't mean you can't be unique. Doesn't mean you can't do your own thing, bring your own flavor. You can, and that's what you have to do. But you got to be able to evolve. Winger didn't do that. So I'm gonna calm down for a minute. I'm not trying to throw shade at Winger or use them as a punching bag. I'm just saying, I really think there was a lot of potential there with the band at that time. You know, I really wish, and I hate this, and I love to see this in other people, whether I know you, your friends or family or close to me or somebody I just kind of see from afar, if there's talent there and I know there's opportunity, I'm the type of person where I want to see that person succeed. I want to see them blossom and grow and live to all that potential. You want to see that. If you're somebody that wants to see somebody succeed and it makes you feel good to see that, that's the kind of people I like. You're my kind of people. If you're somebody that wants to see somebody fail and poke fun and be the person that holds them down, then you don't belong here. Go to another channel. This is not that channel. Now, Winger, man, they had so much potential. You know, it just sucks because if they really would have put their head down, dug their feet into the ground and just kept going, they could have fought through that grunge movement. But I feel like they just jumped into something at the tail end of it. I mean, that 80s rock sound, you know, they were able to get their foot in, get their name out there, get some hits, and they just didn't know where to go next. And I don't really necessarily mean it's their fault. Sometimes we get in over our head, but you know what that is? It's a learning experience. So the cool thing about Winger is they're still out touring today. In fact, they're coming out with new music. I didn't even know they were coming out with a new album. I saw a video the other day of them out in Tokyo. They're touring. They're out in Japan and they're rocking out. And they were pausing in the middle of the show. Kip Winger had his phone out filming the crowd. And the crowd was rocking. They were loving it. I could feel the energy through the screen. It was awesome. And there's people that still love Winger. And there always was people that loved Winger. But the thing was, man, they just really could have grown to a whole new level, I think. The talent's there. It's absolutely there. I just wish they would have tapped into it a little more. But there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm glad the guys are still rocking out because I'll be honest with you, doing the research on this video and digging into it more, I was like, you know what? I actually have a more connection to Winger than I thought I did. You know, that song, Headed for a Heartbreak, once I flipped it on and I had to, kind of remind myself of what it was, I said, oh shit, I know this song. I love this song. It reminded me of my aunt. I grew up, my aunt always had me around her, and she always had that kind of music playing in her room. Headed for an Heartbreak was a song I heard so many times, and it felt good to hear that. I love that song, and I think these guys are doing an awesome job as it stands today. So if you're curious, that new album that Winger is releasing here in 2023, the album's called 7, and I heard some tracks off it, and pretty cool. I mean, they're evolving a little bit with what the sound is, but they still have that Winger sound, and it's not nothing different that you would expect from them. It's not like they completely changed course from their sound, but the guys are older. It's not the original members, but it's quite a few of them that are still with the band, but you got Kip singing, and the sound is good. It's cool album. Go check it out. If you're a Winger fan, if you're not, if you're just a rock fan in general, it might be something you would like to hear. If you love rock music, it's always cool to hear something different or something new. Now, listen, I'm going to stop right here because I got to calm down for a second. I feel like I had a lot of fun doing this video, and I feel like I don't know how to say this. I guess I'll say the viewer that gave me the idea for this, thank you very much. I hope you get to see this video, and I hope that you realize the appreciation I have for you giving me the idea, because it brought out a whole new energy in me. I mean, it's just life throws you curves sometimes, and if you're really passionate, you got to keep going and grinding, whatever it is. Don't stop. Don't let nobody tell you you're not good enough. People are going to crap on you, but you got to keep going. That crap on you only makes you stronger. I don't know if that's the right metaphor to use, but it'll only make you stronger. People kicking you, throwing rocks, all that stuff. You got to take it with a grain of salt, and you got to keep moving forward, because just as many people that hate you, if you keep grinding and then you show that you love something, there's going to be just as many more people that love you. So never give up at what you're doing. Thank you everybody for watching. I had a blast, absolute blast making this video. And again, American Dream Channel, thank you for watching. Everybody, take care of yourself out there. Take care of your friends and family. Have fun. Go for your dreams. Until next time, take care of yourself. I'm out.